Hey, I'm Emily, and I've got a secret that's tearing me apart. Picture this: a freezing night in the mountains, trapped in a tiny tent with my husband's best friends, the darkness hiding more than just the wilderness outside. Laughter turned to whispers, and before I knew it, I stumbled into a moment that could shatter everything I hold dear. My heart's racing every time I look at Ryan, wondering if he can see the guilt written all over me. What did I do in that suffocating space, and will the truth ever claw its way out? Stick around, because this story's about to unravel in ways I never expected. Picture this. I'm standing at the edge of a memory so sharp it cuts through the haze of everyday life. A moment that's been replaying in my mind like a stubborn echo. My name's Emily, 29 years old, and I've got a story that's been clawing at me to be told. I'm married to Ryan, who's 32 and practically lives for the outdoors. We've been together for 5 years now, navigating the kind of marriage that's seen its share of stormy days and golden sunsets. We're solid, though, most of the time. Ryan's the kind of guy who can't sit still, always chasing the next adventure, and I've learned to keep up, even if my heart isn't always in it. Ryan's got 2 best friends, Jake and Connor, both in their early 30s, who are pretty much family to us. Jake's the life of any gathering, always cracking wise and shrugging off life's burdens with a grin. Connor, on the other hand, keeps to himself more, but when he speaks, it's with a dry, piercing humor that catches you off guard. I've known them for years, long enough to feel at ease around their banter and quirks. I'm not exactly the rugged type. Give me a cozy couch over a sleeping bag any day, but I join their camping trips to stay close to Ryan, and honestly, because I enjoy the crew. There's a warmth in their company that makes even the bug bites bearable. Just a week ago, we set out for our latest escape, heading to a spot in the rugged mountains a few hours from home. Ryan couldn't stop talking about this new place he'd stumbled. As we rolled into the campsite, the world outside the car windows was swallowed by a pitch-black night, the kind of darkness that feels like it's pressing in on you. The chilly mountain air bit at my skin the second I stepped out, sharp and unrelenting, making me pull my jacket tighter around me. Somewhere in the distance, an owl let out a low, haunting hoot, a sound that seemed to echo my own unease. After hours on the road, exhaustion weighed on me like a heavy blanket, my limbs sluggish as I tried to shake off the stiffness from the drive. Ryan parked near a small clearing, the gravel crunching under the tires, and we all piled out, headlamps casting weak beams of light into the void as we started unloading our gear. I felt out of my element from the get-go, stumbling over unseen roots and rocks, my breath visible in the cold air as I shivered despite the layers I'd piled on. Meanwhile, Ryan, Jake, and Connor moved with an ease I envied, hauling bags and coolers from the trunk, like this was just another day for them. Their voices carried through the stillness, light and teasing, as if the biting cold and endless dark didn't faze them one bit. I caught Jake tossing out some quip about the stars being brighter out here, and even in my tired haze, I couldn't help but glance up, though all I saw was an inky sky with barely a twinkle. But then, as we started sorting through our stuff, the problem hit us like a slap. We were short a tent. I stood there, dumbfounded, as Ryan let out a quiet curse under his breath, rubbing the back of his neck in frustration. Here I am, squeezed into this tiny tent with Jake and Connor, the darkness wrapping around us like a heavy blanket. We've turned off the lantern to save what little battery we have left, leaving just the faintest memory of its glow in my mind. The air inside smells of nylon, and the sharp, earthy scent of pine that clings to everything out here in the mountains. I can hear Jake's steady breathing on my left, and Connor's softer exhales on my right, their presence so close that our sleeping bags are practically overlapping. I try to focus on sleep, on shutting out the world, but every rustle, every shift, feels amplified in this cramped space. My nerves are on edge, and I'm hyper-aware of how little separates us. Jake, always the one to lighten the mood, whispers into the dark with a chuckle, saying we're packed in here like sardines in a can. I can't help but let out a quiet laugh, the sound barely audible, but enough to ease the knot in my chest just a little. For a moment, it feels like we're just old friends sharing a silly moment, and I'm grateful for the distraction. But the stillness creeps back in soon after, heavy and unyielding, until Connor's low voice cuts through it. He asks me how I'm holding up out here, knowing full well I'm not exactly in my element on these trips. There's a softness in his tone, something almost tender, and it catches me off guard. I find myself answering honestly, admitting that I often feel like I don't quite fit in with all this wilderness stuff, but I do it for Ryan. My voice is a whisper, barely daring to disturb the quiet. Jake chimes in then, his voice hushed but warm, sharing little stories about past adventures with Ryan, moments I've only heard bits and pieces of before. We're all whispering now, trading memories and soft laughter, and it's like a small bubble of warmth forms around us in the cold, endless night. I didn't expect this sense of connection in such a confined space, but it's there, growing with every shared word. It feels safe, almost comforting, like we've. As the first light of dawn creeps through the thin fabric of the tent, I'm already awake, my eyes tracing the faint glow outlining the world outside. The soft chirping of birds filters in, a gentle reminder of a new day, but inside this cramped space, the air feels suffocating. Jake and Connor are still beside me, their breathing uneven now, a sign they're stirring too. None of us say a word about what unfolded in the dark hours before, but the silence is heavier than the mountain mist. It's like we've built an invisible wall between us, each of us trapped behind it with our own thoughts. My chest tightens with a guilt so raw it's almost physical, my mind spiraling back to Ryan, who's likely still curled up in the car, unaware of the line I crossed just feet away from him. I can't stay in here a second longer. With trembling fingers, I carefully unzip the tent, the sound slicing through the quiet like a confession I'm not ready to make. Stepping outside, the cold morning air hits me hard, a sharp sting against my skin that mirrors the harsh truth of what I've done. I wrap my arms around myself, trying to hold together the pieces of who I thought I was. The campsite is bathed in a pale golden haze, the mountains looming in the distance with a thin veil of mist clinging to their peaks. The scent of pine mixes with the crispness of the morning, grounding me for just a moment before my gaze catches on the car. There's movement, and then Ryan steps out, stretching his arms above his head with a sleepy smile that cuts me deeper than I expected. He spots me and calls out, asking if I slept okay, his voice warm and unsuspecting. My stomach twists into knots as I force a smile, mumbling something about the tent being cramped but manageable. The words taste like ash in my mouth, and I can barely meet his eyes. I turn away, pretending to adjust my jacket, just as Jake and Connor emerge from the tent behind me. They don't look at me, not directly, instead busying themselves with gathering wood for a breakfast fire. Their movements are stiff, their chatter overly. As we sit around the small fire, the crackling of the wood is the only sound breaking the tense silence at first. The smell of sizzling bacon and brewing coffee fills the air, a comforting contrast to the storm raging inside me. Ryan's across from me, flipping a pan with a casual ease, his face lit by the warm glow of the flames. Then he looks up, his eyes catching mine, and I feel my heart lodge itself in my throat. He tilts his head slightly, a curious glint in his gaze, and asks if everything's okay. His tone is light, almost playful, but it pierces right through me. I can barely breathe, my mind racing with 1,000 ways to answer, each one more dangerous than the last. I open my mouth, but the words won't come. My palms are sweaty despite the morning chill, and in that split second, I make my choice. I can't tell him. Not now, maybe not ever. The thought of losing him, of seeing that warmth in his eyes turn to pain, it's more than I can bear. I convince myself this was a one-time slip, a moment of weakness brought on by the strange closeness of the night, the isolation of these mountains. It's a flimsy excuse, I know, but it's all I've got to cling to. I force a laugh, the sound hollow even to my own ears, and tell him we're just tired from being packed in so tight last night. Ryan nods, a small smile tugging at his lips, but I catch a flicker of doubt in his expression, a shadow that makes my stomach churn. Does he sense something's off? I can't tell. I glance at Jake and Connor, who are poking at the fire and passing plates around. They don't meet my eyes, but there's a subtle nod between them, an unspoken agreement to keep this buried. It's like we've all signed a pact in silence, a fragile thing that could shatter with one wrong word. The rest of the morning drags on with a forced sense of normalcy. We pack up our gear, the rustle of nylon and clink of metal filling the air as we dismantle the drive back home from the mountains felt like wading through a fog, every mile stretching out longer than the last. Ryan was at the wheel, humming along to some old tune on the radio, while I stared out the window, the passing trees blurring into a green haze. My mind wasn't on the road, though. It was still back there, tangled in the shadows of that tent. When we finally pulled into our driveway, the familiar sight of our little house should have brought relief, but instead, it felt like stepping into a life that didn't quite fit me anymore. We unloaded the car in silence, the weight of unspoken things pressing down harder than the bags in my hands. The days that followed were a strange kind of normal. Ryan and I slipped back into our routine, work, errands, quiet evenings at home, but everything felt off, like I was watching myself from a distance. I'd be standing at the stove, stirring a pot of pasta for dinner, and catch myself glancing at him, wondering if he could see the storm behind my eyes. Or we'd be on the couch, some mindless show flickering on the TV, his arm draped casually over my shoulder, and I'd feel this jolt of awareness, a secret burning under my skin. Does he notice the way I tense up sometimes? Does he hear the hesitation in my voice when I laugh? I keep waiting for him to ask, to dig deeper, but he doesn't. Maybe he doesn't want to know. I haven't heard much from Jake or Connor since we got back. A few texts popped up in our group chat, casual stuff, memes, plans for the next trip, but it's like they're pretending that night never happened. I read their messages and feel this cold distance growing. I don't know if I can look at them the same way again, if I can sit across a campfire and act like we didn't cross a line that can't be uncrossed. Worse, I'm not sure I trust myself around them anymore. What if that moment of weakness wasn't just a fluke? What if it's a part of me I didn't know was there, waiting to surface again? I'm drowning in. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.